Here's our next motorhome modification. This is a Furrion stove and oven that's brand new. It's never been installed in an RV. And so here's the top with 3 burners. And down here is what I'm most excited about, is the oven. Yay! Our motorhome only has a convection oven and a 2-burner cooktop. So I'm quite excited to have a propane oven again. We did do this change in our last motorhome, in our Safari, where we sacrificed a couple drawers underneath and put in a complete oven. This is the 17-inch, not the 21. And we know it'll fit perfect. We did our measurements, and we're still going to be able to keep 2 of our drawers. So it's never been hooked up yet. It's kind of an interesting deal. The guy works at an RV repair place, and evidently he ends up with the scratch and dent ones, and he's able to sell them. So we picked it up for about 1/3 of the price, and it's basically brand new. No warranty, of course, but we're kind of excited to get started on this new project. Here's our current setup in the motorhome. We have this 2-burner cooktop with a small burner and a large burner, which works, but it's not ideal, especially if you're cooking 2 or 3 things at a time. We do breakfast. 1 is eggs, 1 is bacon, 1 is hash browns. So we are going to sacrifice this second big drawer, which right now houses all of my kettles. We'll move them down. And then this drawer right underneath is actually a very low profile drawer to make room for the bottom part of that cooktop. So we're going to move this second drawer down into the middle drawer, or drawer spot, using the same drawer slides and brackets, but we'll have to cut down this fake front and move the handle down a little bit. But I think it'll work just fine. So Steve will be carefully marking off and cutting the rectangular shape for the new one to set into. Make some support boards underneath for it, and hooking everything up. The electrical part of the new one is 12 volts, so we'll find a 12 volt line here to tap into, and it will be we've removed all 3 drawers. Kind of eyeballed underneath here, see what's going on. There's the top drawer is a skinny one that we'll put down in the middle section, and the bottom drawer will go back in. So the middle drawer is the one we're omitting. And there's up underneath. Let the fun begin. Okay, excuse the air conditioner noise. It's pretty hot outside while we work on this in the driveway. Steve's removing the old cooktop. He has the propane off. This is held in place by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws. And we'll see how it lifts out of there.
Well, actually start it, see.
Oh, burn off any propane?
Yeah.
That's a good thought. Burn off what's left in the line. Okay, all the gas is out of the lines. Now it's time to lift it out. Looks like it was just sealed down with some tape. Kind of the same stuff that was on the sink. This is actually what our countertop is made of. It's a piece of plastic, like Formica-y stuff, styrofoam in the middle, and Luan on the bottom. There's not a lot to it. Oh, I suppose there's a layer of Luan on the top too. Removing the gas fitting from the copper line on the back of the stove. Not a lot of room to work in. There's a little ground wire attached. push it a little bit there. There. We'll just leave that screw on there. Should I screw it back in?
Sure.
Okay. I'm doing this trying to hold the camera. There. Got it. So there it is, totally unhooked. One gas line and one ground wire. Easy peasy. We're ready now to move forward with the next step of our stove oven installation. So we've removed the drawers. We removed the dividers between two of the drawers to have access to the complete area that we need to slide in the oven. Our next step is going to be to cut this countertop. And the square is down so we can cut it in a straight line. We're using an oscillating tool. The countertop is really a thin layer of a plastic formica material on a thin layer of wood. Then there's a layer of styrofoam and then another layer of wood to cut through. So as long as we get through the first layer without cracking anything, we can work at getting rid of the rest of the material with subsequent swipes. In the meantime, Steve has also located the positive and ground wires down below in the harness using his multimeter, and he had the power off while he was doing that. And he tapped in and wired off the connections that we'll need for the new stove, because there's lights involved, and an oven light, and there's lights involved around the knobs that indicate whether it's on or off. This is the existing propane gas line. Temporarily, Steve just blocked it off with this piece of configuration of fittings that he uses when he works on things. So it's shut off and capped. Once we get this all cut away, he'll go back in and he will use a little imp, is what it's called, a pipe cutter, to cut off this copper tube back in this area and flare it out and reattach this fitting, because the new unit, the connector, is way back in this corner. He doesn't need all this excess copper pipe. So we have all the equipment ready to go. Steve has all the tools set up, and I think we are about ready to begin. I'm going to hold my breath throughout this whole thing. Oh, down below he laid a piece of plastic in this cavity and taped it down just to make it a little easier on cleanup.
Okay, we're going to take off our plug and shorten our line a little bit. And flare.
It's a tube cutter device.
Yep.
Each time you go around, you tighten the knob just a little bit tighter, and it digs the blade in just a little bit deeper. Copper's very soft. If you just try to cut it straight off, it can kink it or bend it. This way it cuts it in a circular motion. There we go. Now, before he can put on the new fitting, he has to use what's called a flaring tool. So So he puts on the proper bracket here for the right dimension that he needs to flare it open to. And this just flares open the end so the new connection can be made without leaking. You put in the little clamping device over the end of the tube with a little bit hanging out that gets flared open wider. And there's the little piece ready to be flared. And now he's going to put on this other clamp, which has a beveled piece of metal that comes in there and centers itself like a little point. And it mushes the copper in a nice round fashion. To make kind of a lip edge. And this will snug up inside of the fitting when we put the stove into place. And then of course we test it with soapy water to make sure that there are no leaks. So here is the flared piece. Okay, we've now cut some little notches right here in the corners to help offset and push it back a little bit further. Also in these two back corners for clearance. And that way the stovetop can notch in a little bit better around the edge of the countertop, set in a little more flush, and also give us clearance for the handle for the door. That's what we figured out last night. It's always good to take a break when you're doing something, brainstorm something else, and come on back and try again. Okay, we're taking out our protective plastic that helped keep down some of the sawdust. That really helped. And next we're going to set the stove into place and mark for our cross supports that we're going to put in here for the stove to set on. Technically you don't need to, but we're going to do it because we think it'll make a sturdier surface. Okay, now we're setting it into place to test fit. Move that gas line a little bit. There we go. Now, let's see if the door clears. Da-da-da-da! That's what we were working on. Good job. Okay, now we're going to make some marks down below underneath here to make a support shelf for it to sit on. That's our next step. Okay, we're making some really good support braces for underneath the oven, and Steve is not only screwing some blocks into place, he's gluing them with construction adhesive. Okay, we made a framework underneath, sturdy and strong, with blocking to hold the bottom surface of the stove. And then we're adding this extra piece of Luan that was underneath the stove before. And that's going on there just as an extra, I don't know, support. Brings it perfectly up 16 1/8 of an inch from the top surface of the countertop to the surface where the stove is going to rest on the bottom. Okay, we had to do some creative custom work to the cabinetry, so we'd have a flange to screw into, support boards, another flange on this side, a spacer at the bottom. We were able to save the skinny drawer that normally went underneath the original cooktop, and we're just going to cut down the face of it. So we're just working on the final everything around it. All of our creative cabinetry with flanges and supports and brackets. It's all well supported, a lot better than I think the original stove was. And we were able to keep this drawer. We got to put the drawer front on yet. We were able to keep this skinny drawer, which is good for knives and utensils. And we just have to cut the faceplate for it. So we're just about ready to add tinfoil tape around the edges, real foil heat tape, and these extra little brackets that go on here that help support the side screws. There's 4 side screws that go around. There's 2 front screws, plus the whole thing is setting on the deck. So it's not going anywhere. Once we get everything hooked up, I'll take another video. Okay, he's cutting little slits in this styrofoam center layer. These brackets push in. And then he's covering all around the opening with this aluminum foil tape that's used for furnaces. It's real duct tape, not duct tape. And so he's making a protective barrier, even though we're within the offset on the back side where the oven vents are. By covering this whole area with the aluminum foil tape, it's just one extra barrier of protection. Now the back side. Okay, we're hooking up the gas line. Then we'll do a bubble test. We just have the electrical wires to hook up. Steve always uses dielectric grease every time he does any type of electrical fittings. Okay, testing the electrical connections. Ta-da! These are all blue, and then when you're actually using it, it turns red. And then, down here in the oven, there's an oven light. So, Steve said I could turn one of these. Oh, see? They're red. And this is the clicker. And then you could turn them off to not waste power. Okay, so that was test of the electrical. Now we're going to test the propane fitting. A good thing to use is this bubbly power wash dog. Okay, here's the test. You gotta hold the button in for me while I click it because I'm holding the camera. There we go. And we don't have any bubbles back here on the fitting. Down, way down below. Okay, excuse the fan noise. Now he's screwing in the side brackets. And now the 2 front. And now for the final piece, putting the stovetop on. Slides into 2 tabs in the front, drops into place in the back. It's all nice and secure. This folds back once and twice. There's 1. 2. It's going to be so nice to have 3 burners. We used to only have 2. To have enough cooking space to move around a decent number of kettles. There it goes. Okay, we have a pilot light in there. I don't know if we can film it from here. Okay, and then the oven will kick on once it gets up to temperature. There it goes. And we have an oven. Oh, I'm so excited. Plus, we will lay a pizza stone in here on this metal surface, and that helps spread the heat so things don't burn in the oven in the middle. It helps dissipate the heat and spread it out. Those pretty lights, oh my goodness. And there's our oven. Oh, I am extremely pleased. See, previously we just had the 2-burner original cooktop, and up here we have a microwave convection unit that you can only use if you have electric hookups or run the generator. And we're usually boondocking, so we felt this was our next best thing. Because we had done this once before in our safari motorhome, and we really felt we were limited in this one by not having an oven. Now our last step down here is to cut down the face of this last skinny drawer. This skinny drawer used to be up here underneath the cooktop, and we moved it down. So we're going to cut the front face, move the handle a little bit, and that's our drawer for our knives and silverware. And it's better to have a skinny drawer than no drawer at all. So thank you, Steve. I think we did a good job.
Yep, good job.
Yep, and it's done. Fine-tuning the last little adjustment on the narrow drawer. This is the drawer that used to be underneath the cooktop, and it's quite narrow and flat, but works out good for our silverware and our cutting knives. And here we are. Everything is now complete in the kitchen. We have the extra little drawer done down here, and the stove works. The oven works, everything's hooked up, and it clears the door. This was one of our biggest worries. Right here in our 2016 G, we were worried about the bathroom door clearing the handle. And so here we are trying out our new oven. So this is its maiden test. So we have her fired up, and we are cooking Popeyes. They're from our local deli. What I'm going to do is put that hot pad there on top, because this is only a glass top, and we don't want anything too hot on it. And we're going to check the temperature. See why I put them on a pan? Otherwise that mess would be bubbling down into the oven. We're up to about 140. I think we could let them go just a little bit longer. We'll give them a few more minutes. There we go. We have the oven on the middle rack. Underneath we have an old pizza stone in the bottom to help dissipate the, or not dissipate, but spread out the heat so it's not all in one spot, because of course underneath it's a single long burner flame. Now when you have something going, it glows red. The rest of the time they glow blue when they're cool. And of course here is the light switch. You can turn that off if you want, if you're worried about wasting 12-volt power if you're low on batteries. But also there's the light in the oven, which is really nice. I haven't had that since my 1972 Winnebago Chieftain had an oven light. So this is going to be our first meal cooked in our oven, and we are parked in our driveway trying it out. We're sitting out here watching TV, right?
Yep, we are.
Right, Nick? And dinner will be ready in a few minutes. Okay, here we are. Dinner is done. Ta-da! So our new Furrion oven and stove have passed the test. Bon appetit.